right, welcome back. It is just about time for Shadow of the Colossus PS4 remake. 90% PS4, of course. Um, this game is very significant to me to have in Fleet Fest because at the very first Fleet Fest, back in 2016, 17, whatever it was, I was going to have the PS3 version of this game as the grand finale. A runner named Neurotaku, who, if you are familiar with the history of this game, it kind of hasn't been around in a while, but if you are
Mm-hmm.
kind of familiar with the history of this game, you would know who that is. And it looks like the L is not there in Colossus, but I assure you it is. I typed it in, so what are you going to do? But unfortunately, he had to drop out because of technical issues. So this is the first time we've been able to see this game at all on Fleetfest, and we have rubiehart with us, and I will pass it over to them in three, two. I'm not going to say one yet because I don't know which button to press. Just give me one quick second. Uh, One quick second is fast becoming one long second. I think we're actually okay if I just throw it over to you now, rubiehart.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. How's it going? As I got the lovely introduction, my name is Ruby Hart, and I am extremely excited to be showing you Shadow of the Colossus. It is my favorite game of all time, and that's part of the reason that I got into running it in the first place. Give me 1 second. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw a host to the channel for while I'm doing the run. Let me see. Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start the run in three, two, one, go. So for anyone who may not be familiar with this game, it was developed by a studio called Gen Design, and it originally was released for the PS2. Then later was released as a dual pack with the first game in the series Eco, along with this one for the PS3, just as a general HD remaster. There wasn't much optimization of the controls, but there was a little bit that was smoothed out on the edges when it came to the actual graphics themselves. But then Bluepoint Studios got a hold of the game, and for PS4, completely remade the assets from the ground up using the PS2 version kind of as a skeleton. So underneath this game is actually running the original version with just some smoothed out controls, really beautiful graphics, and everything else just optimized as much as possible. So, the general plot of this game, just so you kind of understand where I'm going and why I'm doing what I'm doing, is you play as this young man, Wander, who is wandering the Forbidden Lands. You come to this place after stealing a sword with a young woman who has died. And after speaking with a god that resides in this land known as the Door, resides in this land known as the Door. As this went on, once you actually talk with this god a little bit more, he basically says, okay, I would be happy to help you. But in order to do that, in order to bring her back to life, I need my power back. It's sealed inside these colossi, so you have to kill them for me to get that power. So, all of the monsters I'm going to be fighting are going to be those 16 different colossi that are spread all across the landscape. So this first one, Valis, actually gives us a really good tutorial of kind of how the game is going to work. So you see a little bit of architecture on his back, some fur mixed with the stone, and even though normally with these colossi you would use the architecture to just climb up their back or other parts of their body, because we're doing a speed run, that is not actually the strategy we're going to use. Although, oh no, I missed the first jump. So what I'm going to be doing instead is I'm going to go ahead and hit this ankle twice. That is going to cause him to activate that animation of just falling to his knees. And I'm going to go ahead and grab directly onto his face. Oh, perfect. And once he gets up, now I don't have to worry about any of the extra climbing time on his back. I can just get directly onto the head And what you're going to see me do here is I'm in what's called a plant. So there are some positions on the Colossi where no matter how much they shake around, once you have that grip of a plant, it's not actually going to move you. So that's what I ended up doing there. And then the reason why I used a jump stab on the final hit is in this game, if you use a normal stab for the end of the fight, then that takes you into slow motion and it takes longer to get to the cutscene. So the in-game timer is still running, and we want to reduce the in-game time as much as possible for the sake of the speedrun chart. So by doing a jump stab, not only is it the most powerful stab in the game, but it also takes you directly into the cutscene, so you don't have to worry about that extra time. So that's the general basis of the game, and of some of the mechanics I'm going to be using. As I go through the Colossi, I'll go ahead and explain how you would normally defeat it with what we call the intended strats, as well as the ways that I am going to be turning that on its head for the sake of, again, reducing that time. So the next Colossus that we're headed to is named Quadratus. I call him my boar boy. I kind of have nicknames for all the different Colossi. So this Colossus is going to be on a little beach, and this is the second one that, when you're playing the game, is still kind of in tutorial land of teaching you about how the different mechanics of the game may work. So once I get to him, the way that you would normally defeat this Colossus is he is the one who introduces a little bit more of complicated weak points coming into play. So needing to use those in order to get the Colossus to knock over so you can get on top. With this Colossus, he has 4 weak points on the bottoms of his feet. So normally what we would need to do is shoot the feet in order to get him to kind of fall over so we could get on his leg. But what I'm going to do is actually a little bit of an abuse of something that exists in the game. So instead, if I actually jump over onto this cliffside you see to the right here, there is a specific point that I can jump from and just get directly onto Quadratus's back, because it actually will activate the cutscene. So I don't have to worry about getting all the way down to the beach or doing any kind of waiting. So once I skip this cutscene, I'm still going to be flying through the air, and now I'm just directly there. I'm also going to see there's a plant that I can hit here. The placement is a little more finicky though, but it looks like I got it, even though I had a little bit of a meme stab there at first. And the reason sometimes you'll be right on top of a sigil or in the hitbox but not actually register damage is the hitboxes underneath the fur of the Colossus move. So sometimes if you stab one particular place, it may not register the first time, and then later on it does end up registering the damage. Okay, let's see. Oh gosh, no. Oh, and the lovely thing is, they were programmed to act as much like living creatures as possible, so sometimes you'll get extra shakes you don't expect. Do not throw me off your butt, please. Part of the experience of me playing this game is also just yelling at the Colossi, so there's little taste number 1 of that. But that's Colossus number 2, Quadratus. And we're just past that 6-minute mark, so this is a pretty good place to be. My ideal is being just under the 6 minutes for when I get that final stab in, but we're still making really good time here. Otherwise, let me see. I'm trying to think of how to put this. So the reason I got into speedrunning this game and why I love running it at so many events is I would race it all the time with my best friend. We bonded over the fact that we both loved this video game in college, and it started off as us just passing the controller back and forth in order to play the game, and I would kind of shove the Colossi I didn't like on him, and he would do the same with me, and then we would dibs our favorites. And occasionally, if there were a few that both of us liked, we would just switch them out year to year. But then we got so competitive with it that we started doing yearly races together. And then it became way less than yearly. And before I even knew I was speedrunning, I was racing my best friend trying to get the best time. And then during the course of pandemic, so I'm a professional actor and theater artist based in the DC metro region, but when I didn't have rehearsals or performances or anything like that to deal with anymore, or not deal with, I absolutely love working on shows. So since I didn't have that part of my schedule, I wanted to throw my energy behind something different, and getting into streaming and getting to know the really incredible Team Eco Speedruns community has meant the world to me. It's such an inclusive and hilarious and talented group of people, and I'm really, really happy that I get to call those people my friends. So yeah, that's how I got into speedrunning the game, and we're actually going to be doing a 6-person race right after this on another channel, so that'll be really interesting. Okay, so the next Colossus that I'm coming up to is named Gaius. And this one, if I can nail it, has one of the most iconic jumps in the game, or one of the most iconic skips. But we'll see, knock on wood, because it is a very difficult trick. So this Colossus, I've nicknamed the Warrior. And once we get to him, you'll kind of see why. He is this absolutely towering figure that has a huge sword that he tries to hit you with. And normally, the way you would defeat this Colossus is if you look in the center of the arena, there's going to be a metal plate, and Gaius's armor is extremely fragile. So if you get him to hit his sword onto that metal plate instead of hitting you and killing you, it actually breaks his armor. And that allows you, normally he has an arm guard that blocks your path, but by knocking that off, it actually allows you to get a clear path and climb up the fur on his arm. So that's the way that you would normally beat this Colossus, to get the stomach sigil and to get the head sigil. But we're actually going to skip a good majority of that, because there is a very special launch that we call the Space Jam, or the Gaius launch, where I am going to try and get on the very end of his sword and see if I can get him to flick me directly to the top of his head. That's the goal here. So we'll see if I can actually nail it. One thing that's sad for marathons is you don't get to see the really epic cutscenes just setting up the Colossus fight. But as you can see, just this is a towering hulk of a Colossus. All right, let's see. So what I'm doing here, by the way, is I know the placement of where the sigil is on his stomach. And even though you can't take out a sigil just with arrows, eventually you do have to switch to the sword. You can at least get some starting damage on it. Oh, nope. And I did not hit that jump. Oh, that's unfortunate. That's okay, though. Since I'm still on the sword, there is an alt strat I can do here pretty easily. I just flubbed that second part of the jump, so no big deal. What I'm going to do instead is just run here and use that angling to get directly onto the stomach, and I'll take out the sigil first. But what I was saying is, since I know the placement of the sigil on the stomach, I was able to just get in some arrows to get in a little bit more damage right at the start. And normally you have to do an extra stab on the stomach, but since I was able to get those arrows, I don't have to worry about that. So I only had to do 3 stabs, I'm already done, and I'm headed up to the head. Let's see, and I'm gonna go ahead. Another really nice thing is sometimes with the angles that he takes as he's trying to shake you off, it actually gives you a really good, I guess, ramp almost, to just run directly up rather than having to sit and spend all of your time climbing. And now that I'm on the head sigil, this is the final one. I'm just going to try and get to a good placement on the head so I don't have to worry about him constantly shaking me. I'm having a bit of a hard time with that now, but let's see if I hit this plant here. There it is. Okay, so now I'm not going to get shaken until he does that. And I've just got one more stab, so once I get in place, we'll be good to go. And... oh, no! Okay, no, there we go. All right, so that unfortunately we didn't get the ideal strat there, which is that Gaius launch. But by staying on the hammer, the nice thing is there are really good alternative strats for this Colossus as well as many others, in order to be able to recover if you don't get the absolute hardest versions of the trick. All right, so once the death spaghetti hits us, as we affectionately refer to it, we're gonna be headed towards Colossus number 4. This one is very beloved. All of us in the community kind of have our own favorite colossi. So I personally love hearing about everyone's favorite different colossi that they have and now kind of associate them with those people. So this one I associate with Usurpering, who, when I ran this game at GDQ Fleet Fatales, was my commentator. She's absolutely incredible, really talented speedrunner of The Last Guardian, and a beloved member of the Team Eco Speedruns fam. So her favorite Colossus is this one coming up, who she affectionately refers to as Phaedra. So Phaedra is some people say dragon, some people say llama, horse, deer. I've kind of heard it all with this Colossus. Giraffe, I think, is one that I heard at one point. But I'll just throwing those suggestions out there. I will let you look and leave it to your own imagination. I guess much like gen design games, how they are designed to be open to interpretation. What the heck this Colossus is supposed to be animal-wise could also be left open to the same kind of interpretation. But the way that I'm going to try and defeat this Colossus is, you'll see, well, I'll just be barely passing them. You're not going to get a very good look, honestly, because I'm going to be headed directly towards the Colossus and not actually use these in the fight. But the way you would normally beat it, intended strat-wise, is there are these different tunnels underneath the grass in this arena. And what you would want to do is lure Phaedra over so she thinks, oh, I've gone down into these tunnels. So basically getting her to bow her head so she starts looking for you. And then what you can do is either grab the whiskers on her face or the ladders on her butt in order to get to the back, grab the sigil on the head, and that's generally how you would defeat this Colossus. Instead, what I'm going to do is actually skip all of that. So here are those lovely tunnels I talked about that look at how beautiful they are, because you are not going to see them again. So I'm actually going to completely surpass these and get to the Colossus. And then if I get the right timing here, I can actually jump directly onto one of the ledges on the back leg. They built the Colossi so a lot of their harder edges are actually possible to grab onto. So let me see if I can get this. Okay, cool. Yep, so I got that ledge. Now I just need to get the second part of the jump to the second part of the leg. And now I just need to get that ladder on the butt. Bam, first try, and just like that, we're done. Oh, thank goodness. So this is one that if you get it first try on an any percent run, so running the game from full start to finish, it feels so fulfilling. But on the flip side, if you don't, sometimes this Colossus can really troll you after the first hit, and getting that recovery can be a little tricky. But we got it first try, so now that I'm in the plant, I just need to keep stabbing this head sigil and take that all the way home. So this Colossus will probably be dead in about 10 seconds or less. All I need to get is like 2 more stabs and we'll be all set to go here. And there we go. Just like that, we're all set. Oh my god. I love it. Oh gosh. Also, just every single time I play this game, I find a moment where I have to go, oh my god, I've never noticed that, or oh, that's so pretty. And seeing the aerial view of the stones underneath Phaedra's feet and just how much extra detail they put into it in this version. It's just gorgeous. There's also a really funny glitch that will sometimes happen on this Colossus. I don't think it's happened to me during a full marathon yet, but it has happened during like races with friends, and then it happened during a submission video I made at one point. So the butt ladder will sometimes fully just spaz and start flying up and down as quickly as possible. And if that happens, if you wait long enough, it will eventually reset the butt. I have tested this. Eventually, it does time out. But we don't know what causes the glitch or how it happens. I don't know a good recovery for if that happens. I've never been able to salvage that from a run. I've always just kind of fallen off and then had to wait it out. But if you ever get the chance, look up the Phaedra butt glitch. It is absolutely hysterical. 10 out of 10. Can recommend watching those memes. Let's see. I'm taking a look at the comments. I sold my PS2 version of the game for peanuts. Biggest regret. Oh no. That's so upsetting. I will say, when I was growing up, I used to all the time. I would have a game system, and then when the new one came out, assume, oh, I don't need this anymore. I can get rid of it and sell it to get the new one. Worst mistake of my childhood. I mean, granted, there are some that I'm definitely glad that I was able to like sell them and get other things, but man, selling my original copies of like Ocarina of Time and Banjo-Tooie and a bunch of these other games that now I have such a hard time finding. Ugh, big regrets. Although not as big as my regret of I was the kid who grew up loving Pokemon trading cards. And then when I got to middle school, thought, I've outgrown this, and just gave a binder with a ton of original print legendaries. I could have retired from that binder. That's neither here nor there. But yes, oh man. Don't sell your Pokemon cards if you have originals, kids. Big mistake. Okay, so this next Colossus I'm going to be heading towards is called Avion, or my birdie boy in my particular lore of nicknames. And this Colossus is a really, really fun one. So basically it's, as the nickname suggests, it's a huge, huge stone bird. And what I'm going to be doing here, the way that you beat it with speedrun tricks actually isn't all that different from the intended strat. So I'm going to go over to these little platforms that you can see in the distance, and I'm going to end up using those to shoot Avion just to get her attention and get her starting to show her aggression towards me, basically pull the aggro. And once that happens, she's going to swoop down so that I can actually grab onto her wing with the right jump timing. And then, unlike the first few Colossi we've seen where there have only been 1 or 2 sigils, this Colossus has 3. So there is going to be a sigil on either wing, as well as one on the very back of the tail. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and jump here. I'm going to wait for her to kind of get out these initial flaps. And the nice thing is, once you've played this game enough, it's actually pretty easy to memorize the patterns. As long as you get the timing and the placement right, you can pretty much make sure to replicate the same thing every time, but there is a little bit of variance, and if you don't get exactly right placement, you can sometimes just lose everything. Oh, I was hoping to go for a full wing drop there. I lost it a little bit, but that's okay. I was able to get to the other sigil, and to me, that's honestly what matters here, is just getting to it as quickly as possible. So once Avion stops flapping, I'm going to be able to get this second stab there and do another little wing drop to the center. Perfect. And now, one thing that's cool about this final sigil is, oops. So one thing that's pretty neat about it is I don't actually need to be directly on top of the sigil in order to hit it. So this hitbox, for some reason, is really long. So as long as you're on like the back third of the tail, you can hit it pretty much seamlessly. And so the one thing I will say there is I didn't get the full wing drop for one directly onto the other, which is like my favorite trick to hit when you can land it, just because it looks really cool. But I did get the half wing drops on both sides, no drops into the water, so we still made really, really good time here. Yeah, I think this is also. I saw Asma say the only Colossus with wings, so it makes sense. And yeah, this is the only Colossus that has sigils on the wings. The only other Colossus that is a full flying Colossus. The sigils are going to be on the back, but we'll see more of that when we actually get to it later on. And one thing that I touched on this just ever so slightly earlier, but one thing that's really beautiful about these games, and by that I mean gen design games, is they always give you, I want to say, between like 3 and 12 like major cutscenes, with a little bit of dialogue just to set up the beginning, and then a few like more important checkpoints during the story, and all the rest of it is kind of left open to your own imagination. Team Eco's games are really, really brilliant, and they basically, the reason that they made them the way that they did with the more loose storylines is they wanted to invite players in to be able to add their own theories into the story, and that kind of design of allowing someone else's creativity to mesh with the art that you've already created, and that is part of the beauty of it and part of the intention of it. I think that that's just genius design, which is part of the reason why I've fallen in love with this game so much. Is not only does it have just incredible orchestration and art, the designs of the battles are amazing, but also hearing other people's theories and getting to see how they match up with my own, getting to discuss it with people. That's probably the main reason that I love this game as much as I do. It's just, it's a beautiful world with every corner having something new to be discovered. And this is a really, really big map, honestly. So really quickly, if you just take a look at that, the places where I fought Colossi already have opened up, but everything else is covered by clouds. But you can wander a good majority of that landscape. And you can find birds in different places. Some of them you can actually grab onto and fly around the Forbidden Lands, so that's really fun when you get the chance to. There are little shrines and trees that you can use across the landscape. So if you actually take a look at this tree over here, they have fruit that allows you to get more health. And then if you ever find a white-tailed salamander, you can kill it to get more grip. So it's pretty great the way that they've built just such a sparse landscape that you can still do so much with, and create so much imaginative storytelling with. All right, so this next Colossus that I'm just about to get to, we're entering his arena now, is Barba, or I refer to him as the Old Sage. So this Colossus, the way that you would normally beat him is he has a big, big, big beard, and Barba actually means beard in Spanish, fun fact. So the way that you would beat this Colossus is there is a temple on the far side. So if you look all the way across, you can see kind of the columns. And what you would do is get Barba all the way over there and basically hide behind one of those columns so that he gets confused. And you can then grab onto his beard to get to his head. What I'm going to do here instead is there's a specific part in this cutscene where if I pause and skip at the right time, if I get it, we'll see, fingers crossed, then I should land directly on the beard. Yep, there we go. Okay, so that cutscene glitch put me directly on the beard, and now I'm able to just grab really quickly as much as possible, and that's going to pop me directly up. Now, these sigils, so the ones on the head and the back for this Colossus, I only actually have to hit 2.5 times. And when I say 2.5, if you look at the stamina bar, you can see with that the little white dotted lines inside of it, how much grip I need to use. So if it's charged all the way, that's what I refer to as a one stat. Then if it just goes to that little inside yellow circle, just the slightly darker one, that would be what's considered a half stab. And those are actually like specific percentages of stabs are going to be something that comes into play a lot more later in the run. Because the way that you kill Colossi faster for several of the fights is by getting what we call a one cycle. So making sure that you do enough damage to the Colossus that you kill it without it repeating all of its animations and throwing you off. So there is a first try Barba. We got a single shake, but other than that, that was pretty much flawless. So I'm really happy with that performance. And we just beat the first 6 in under 30 minutes. So we're making really, really good time here. Beating a boss in 2.5 attack button presses. Oh my god. It's been so long since I watched the double A press video. Side note, the first time I ever watched it, a friend told me, now we could watch this normally to analyze it, or I could just make your brain explode and put it on 1.5 or 2 speed. So the way I've watched that video is by him not only going through the insane amount of A-press theories and parallel universes and just really digging into the speedrun strats of the game, but also with him going at an almost chipmunk-like rate, which just is absolute nonsense and is hilarious. So if you ever get the chance to watch it that way, can recommend. Okay, so the next one we're headed towards, this is one of the kind of make or break Colossi. Something that a lot of us will say, especially if we're doing races, is it could be anyone's game because something could go wrong at any moment. And what we all mean by that is no matter how easy we make different Colossi look, in the end, there could be so much that goes wrong. So like with the third Colossus, for example, I do get that Gaius launch pretty regularly, but sometimes you're not going to hit it, and that's okay. It happens. You have to learn how to adapt to it. But the ones that I refer to as the more game-breaking or run-killing Colossi are the ones that just have some of the absolute hardest strats associated with them. And this one, at least for me, is definitely one of those run-killing Colossi. So his name is Hydrus, or as I refer to him, Ely Boy. And as the name implies, by the way, if you have fears of creatures in deep bodies of water, I would not recommend watching this next fight, just because it is an eel with huge, huge spike nodes on its back. So it is a pretty scary fight for if you have that phobia. So I would definitely recommend just like taking a 5 and then coming on back over. Okay, so with this eel, the way that we would normally defeat it is you'll see an animation where Hydrus, once he sees me, if you notice with the Colossi, their eyes are normally blue. But once they get agitated and start coming for you, their eyes will turn orange. So if a Colossus' eyes have turned blue, you know that they've lost interest or just aren't planning to attack you at that moment. So with this Colossus, I'm going to try and get him agitated enough that he actually swims towards me. And with the normal strat, you would want to grab onto the tail and then slowly make your way up the back, take out the electric node so you don't die, and then it would probably take a 2 cycle in order to take out the head sigil. What I'm going to do is nothing like that because, again, we're doing a speed run, so who cares about regular strats? So what I'm going to try and go for here is basically a series of 3 different jump stabs in the water that if you nail them just right, and it involves counting swim animations and all sorts of really weird stuff. So you're going to hear me just zone out and count to 10 during this particular part of the fight. But once you get that series of 3 jump stops, it causes Hydrus' head to cock in a way that the game doesn't typically intend to the side. And then by jumping onto the head, in that way, you're actually just able to get directly onto the sigil and finish out the rest of the fight rather than having to get onto the tail and spend all that time rolling all the way up the back. So it's probably a minute plus time save versus the regular strat, maybe even 2 or 3. The problem is if I don't land it exactly, then I could lose many minutes. So we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna wait for the eye to pass, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 little. And now I wait. And as you can see, like I said before, Hydrus's eyes are blue and just switched to that orange, which is exactly what we want. And I'm just gonna wait until I see him and try and get these jump stabs. So wish me a luck. Ha 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 ha. Oh, perfect. And by getting that bob, that basically tells me I made sure I was in the right placement. So yeah, this is going to be a first try 1 cycle of Hydrus with those jump stabs. I'm extremely happy with how that went. Although also, let's not count our chickens before they've hatched. So there it is. Okay, perfect. And just like that, there's first try Hydrus. Yes. Love it. Oh, that feels so good. Yes, yes, yes. I'm so used to having to just get really upset and sing, "Baby, come back!" on that fight. So the fact that I didn't have to scream at the Colossus to come back to me, that feels good. That's a great time. 33:58. Okay, that's fantastic. Yeah, we're making really, really good time here. Okay, so let me see. Oh gosh, I need to stretch really quick here. I was really, really lucky. I've been on the wait list for a few months as someone who's immunocompromised to get the COVID-19 vaccine. And I finally got an email earlier this week and was able to get dose number 1 yesterday. So my arm is insanely sore, but I am so happy that I'm still able to perform and be here and that I was able to get it. So, hey, public service announcement. Not only should you give money to this amazing charity and cause, but you should also go get the vaccine and do your part. Anyway. Okay, so the next Colossus that I'm headed towards is going to be probably one of the easiest Colossi to beat in the game with the speedrun strats. And honestly, one of my favorite fights, just Hydrus and then the next Colossus coming up are 2 of the hardest fights for me. So having the much easier, refreshing breath of fresh air fight in between is always good for me. I'm a fan. So we're headed towards Kuramori, or my salamander boy. So this Colossus is in a huge arena, and basically a coliseum, and can climb up the walls and shoots basically lightning lasers that cause, if they hit a certain area, a static shock cloud to appear. And if you stay in it, it will suck your life and you will die. So playing this fight casually is terrifying. I know I used to be so scared of this fight, even though it was so fun. But once you actually know where to stand and exactly when to shoot the Colossus, it makes it 15 times easier. So the way that you normally beat this Colossus is once it climbs to the top of the arena, it has weak spots on its legs. So you essentially shoot 2 of them in order to send the Colossus tumbling down, much like you do with many of these Colossi. Take out the weak spot, get to the sigil when it's prone, and you're all good to go. So what I'm going to do with this Colossus is just that. It's just shooting the Colossus off of the wall and then stabbing the sigils on the stomach. The only reason why it's really a speedrun strat is you basically learn how much to stab both sigils and where on the wall Kuramori can be for you to have enough time in order to just take them both out rather than having to wait for her to climb all the way to the top of the arena. Also, we've got this beautiful pond here, which, oh my god, they made this area so beautiful in the remake. So normally you would swim across, but there's actually a really nice path here built directly into the water where you can send aggro, and that just makes running through here so much faster. so much easier. So I'm just gonna pull her onto this path. And now she's just gonna drop me off. Thanks, babe. Okay, headed towards Kuramori. And a lot of this extra plant life, there was a little bit in the first game, but it wasn't quite as, how do I put this? There wasn't this much, or with this much detail in the first game, and especially having the flowers now just spread all across the landscape. I don't know, there's something about that extra touch that I love every version of this game, but I think the PS4 hands down is my favorite version just because of how absolutely beautiful they made it. All right, so we're at the arena, so I'm gonna whistle just so Kuramori starts heading up towards me thinking, oh, I heard noise, Wanderer is there, but I'm actually gonna relocate myself to this bottom level just below. Kuramori is gonna be climbing up and I can actually shoot the leg just there. In the middle of the wall, so it's not going to give us as much time, but on normal mode I don't need it. So I'm just going to climb directly. Perfect land. Okay, so now all I need to do is 2.5 stabs to each of these sigils, and I've actually got really good placement here to get what we call cycle stabs, so I don't have to worry about the extra animation time of pulling out the sword. I could just re-grab, let go, re-grab for those stabs. So now I'm just doing the final hits. And just like that with the jump stab, Kuramori is down. Oh, that was a very smooth Kuro. This is turning out to be a very smooth run. I'm sad I didn't get the Gaius launch, but otherwise I'm having a great time. And to all of you who are hanging out in the chat, thank you so much for being here. And again, for supporting a really, really great cause. And now, the bane of my existence. The Colossus that I wish so much I could just kill and yeet into the abyss. I can't yeet him into the abyss, but I can hopefully kill him if everything goes according to plan. So basically, oh gosh, how do I put this? So this Colossus named Bassaron, or I call him Turtle Boy, Geyser Boy, that jerk with the fire, a bunch of other things. But this Colossus is one of the first where there are 2 different strats that we could do here. One of them saves you a little bit of time. The other is a little safer, and it loses you about like 5 or 10 seconds. Really not that much time. But one of them is going to be a full physics abuse kind of jump, whereas the other is just very specific positioning and timing, again, just like the rest of the speedrun is. So I think here I'm gonna try and just go I'll try and go for the physics abuse jump the first few times, just because we're having a lot of fun here and I want to see if I can show off the jump for you. If not, I'll go for the other, but we'll see how it goes. So the one that I'm going to try and go for is basically a leg jump where at a very specific point, Bassaron is going to bend the knee and in order to jump up and try and attack Wanderer and Agro, so our lovely horse. And what I'm going to try and do is jump onto the leg, and if I can get to the place I need to be at a very specific time, I can hold to side jump. And the game, for some reason, interprets it as not just a regular jump if you side jump at a specific time, but as a full launch. So this is also a physics abuse that is very similar to another Colossus that's going to come up later on in the game, Argus. So what I'm essentially trying to do is, rather than doing a basic side jump, get myself to launch so that I can side jump directly onto the head of the Colossus. So we will see how it goes, and if I can't get it, I will do the rib strat, which is, again, a very difficult but more positioning based strat. Let me see. All right, Bassaron, you and me. Let's go. Fight me. Okay, so we're pulling up to this fight. I'm just going to skip directly through the cutscene, and then I'm just going to wait for 1, 2, and once this other leg drops. Let's see if I got that timing. Nope, I sure did not. But, you know, I know you can... Okay, nope. Okay, so I missed it. That's fine. So, if Agro doesn't run away from me, which, you know what, knowing... Yep, she totally is. So I'm just gonna be on my own here. So unfortunately I didn't get it, which is sad. That is a much harder strat for me in any percent, honestly. It's much easier to hit that. Oh, hi! You normally don't try and show up. You actually decided to come help this time. Wow. Wow, hun. Cool. I appreciate you. Thank you. So what I'm gonna do is, the nice thing about this fight is, even though that first trick is really hard to land, if you miss it, you can do on this fight what's called a tactical suicide, or a tactical death in this community. And what that essentially means is, if you just throw yourself off a cliff or find a way to kill yourself really quickly, it resets the fight and puts you in a much easier place to try and nail the trick. Or it gives you another opportunity to get the same kind of setup. So I'm going to go ahead and instead do the strat I'm more comfortable with, which is the rib strat. So what I'm going to do is come under this leg, and then as Basaran launches up, and I missed it! Because apparently I just don't know how to life today. I swear I'm good at this game. Wow. Woof. Okay, well, take 3. So what I wanted to do there was when Basaran bucks up like that, if you run underneath the left leg and just go directly next to the side, there are a bunch of those ridges, kind of like I grabbed onto with Phaedra's back leg on the 4th fight. So there are a bunch of extra ledges you can grab onto in order to grab, land on the leg, and then swing onto the Colossus. It's very bizarre, but we'll see. We'll see. Take 3. Take 3 and mark. Bam. Okay. Hey, babe. Could you, like, work with me here? That would be stellar. And I'm waiting until I see the fire. Show me your fire. Why are you not shooting me with fire? Okay, thank you. All right, come on. There we go. Okay, so grabbing onto the side, like I said before, getting onto the leg, and then jumping, and just like that, we're on the Colossus. There we go. Okay, 3rd time's the charm, apparently. Honestly, I've lost a lot more time here, as much as that's sad to say, and considering the other Colossi have been going so smoothly, I'm not too worried about the time here, because we had a pretty solid recovery. So basically what I need to do now is Basaran, the plant is really hard to hit, and the first part of, or for the first half of his health, he's going to keep doing this buck back that's going to constantly throw me out of my grip. So no matter what, you can't really get much of a plant here. But now that I am under 50% of his health, he's going to start doing a swing from side to side of the head rather than an up and down. And that is actually going to allow me to maintain my plant so that I can just do the rest of the stabs and get it all the way home rather than having to constantly hold on for dear life and hope that I don't die. Okay, it took 3 tries, but there's Basaran. We were able to get it. I'm okay with this and moving forward with my life. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. So I saw a question in the comments about the intended strats speedrun category. So, fun fact, recently, because over the course of the past year, the Team Eco Speedruns community has really grown, and we've kind of helped each other in ways to get through the pandemic. We had a Team Eco Marathon Awards ceremony. We'll constantly advertise each other's streams or marathons that we're going to be in to come and support. I actually see a bunch of people from the community who are there in the comments, which is just absolutely incredible. So with the... let me see... Okay, sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure I skipped the cutscene at the right time. So, but there are a bunch of people I can see from like my community, the Crystal Crew, and the Team Eco Speedruns community in the chat. But one of the things that we did in order to just promote having more fun in the community, because sometimes we would just decide to do random different kinds of meme runs. So one I started, for example, was I realized how little I was moving during the pandemic, and I was very out of shape. And as someone who like does movement theater and stage combat and dance, like that's not a great thing. So I decided one day to do what I called a Shadow of the Colossus run. The title was coined by a friend of mine, Bishop, and they were very gracious to let me use it. So basically in Shadow of the Colossus runs, what I would do is a run of the game, but then on my channel, I had like workout redemptions, and people could send in their points. And then between different Colossus fights, before I moved on to the next section of the game, I would just do a ton of workout stuff. And I recently did a Colossus race with another member of the community, Tic Tac, who is the world record holder for any percent hard and just an incredible member of the community. So that's a thing. But as far as these team eco category extensions, it was basically meant to help promote more gameplay like that. So there's one category that's like the whole trifecta, so running Eco, Shadow of the Colossus, and Last Guardian back to back to back. There's one that is called Cooties percent or social distancing percent, where you play through Eco and you hold on to Yorda's hand as little as possible, which if you've played Eco, if anyone in the chat has had the chance to, just amazing game, highly recommend. But B, you have to hold Yorda's hand to get her through a lot of sections quickly and safely. So it's just an absolute nonsense category. So one of the other categories that was added for Shadow of the Colossus specifically was intended strats, because so many people would talk about it. So it's essentially, yes, we're technically doing the things they wanted us to do. So for Gaius, you make sure to break the armor. For Phaedra, you make sure to use the tunnels. But there are still a lot of speedrun strats, like knowing the timing of the stabs and knowing the animations and using jump stabs, which are built into the game, that are still technically intended. So seeing the speedrunners who know this game really well run intended percent while just yelling about how dumb a category it is it gives me no end of joy. I got to watch a Tic Tac run where he was basically just dissing it the entire time he was actually doing the run and recording it, and it was so funny. Oh yeah, and as JK brought up in the comments, there's also death percent, which is just running through a boss rush and seeing how quickly you can die to every Colossus. So it's a very nonsense category and is so funny. Okay, so this next fight, so Dirge is the name of this Colossus, or Dirgy Dirge, as coined by Wacky Wolfeo, who is a member of the community, who this is her absolute favorite Colossus, hands down. So with this Colossus, it's essentially a sandworm. So, yep, as you can see, he's going to start trying to come at me after circling this pillar. And again, this is one of the Colossi where the way that I'm going to fight it isn't actually that different from the normal strategy. So normally what you would do is shoot the huge eyes that you can see. So already I've got one and I hit this pillar. So that's amazing timing. And now what I'm going to do is there are 2 sigils on the back and I need to stab those. The only thing that makes the speedrun strat of this really different is knowing how to hit the pillars or how to get Dirge on a wall as quickly as possible. But there are specific percentages to stab these. So I'm going to stab 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, I overstabbed. Whoops. Okay, well, I was going to say the speedrun strat is, we make sure not to overstab on the first sigil so that we can stab out the second sigil, and then I overstabbed. So, I'm graceful. It happens sometimes. One of the beauties of speedrunning, you're never going to hit every trick every single time, but getting consistency is always good. Okay, so I've got Dirge behind me. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can... Oh my god, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Babe, thank you. Oh god. What is happening? Sorry, my camera decided to be extra weird. Sometimes we refer to the camera as the 18th Colossus because it can occasionally really throw you off in fights. No! Don't. Stop. Stop. Why? 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 Oh, why? Okay, come on. Hey, hun. I need to shoot you in the eye, please. Follow me. All right. Dirge. Dirge. Wonderful. Okay, here we go. There it is. Okay. So, yep, there we go. We got another pillar. Lol. Okay, so now that the first sigil is taken out, I'm just gonna get to the second sigil, stab it out, and then we'll be all good to go. So I lost about, like, I want to say 30 seconds to a minute there trying to get back on the Colossus, which is unfortunate, but, like, again, it happens. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take it in stride and move forward. So, bam. All right, and Dirge is down. But I will say one thing that's really awesome. My ideal timing is getting to Celosia or just finishing up Celosia right at the hour mark. And the fact that we're finishing this fight at 53:36. Celosia is the next Colossus, by the way. Probably should have started with that. And the next Colossus is another really, really easy, quick fight. I actually think we're going to be hitting that hour mark right after Celosia. So I'm really happy with how this timing is panning out. Yes, small Colossus. It's a small boy. The small boys are definitely my favorite. So this next Colossus, Celosia, is basically a little lion boy or bull or however you want to put it. Has tusks but acts like a kitty cat. And the way that you beat this Colossus is he is afraid of fire. So there are, in the temple that he's defending, there are a bunch of pillars of fire. And what essentially we're going to do, the way that you beat this Colossus normally is getting a stick essentially and lighting it on fire. And as soon as you wave it in front of Celosia, his response is, "Oh no, fire is scary." So you just wave the fire in front of his face until you can knock him off of a cliff and break the armor on his back. What I'm going to do instead is there is a really cool, interesting glitch that's kind of like tricking Celosia's AI. And I'll explain it when we get there. But the thing that's really interesting about this game, as I mentioned before, all of the Colossi are different sizes. They have different behavioral patterns. And that's very intentional by design. Is because they wanted to make sure every single one behaved very distinctly and was its own creature. So there's one Colossus that is towards the end of the game. So Phalanx, that actually is a pacifist. No matter what, it won't attack you. The most damage it could do to you is like if at one point when it goes into the sand, you happen to be on the ground and it knocks you over. That's it. Otherwise, it doesn't attack you. It doesn't even come close to you. On the flip side, though, Phalanx is one of the biggest Colossi and can't do much damage to you. The small boys, though, are very aggressive, very tiny, and very quick. So they take less stabs, but it's also way harder to get grip on them unless you know how to hit the plants exactly on their back. And on top of that, with the small boys, when they attack you, it pretty much instantly stun locks you. So getting up and avoiding getting hit again is extremely difficult. You pretty much have to roll away as quickly as possible. And even then, sometimes it doesn't save you. So that's something that we may have to employ if I get hit. But ideally, I won't get hit and I won't lose time because it's a speed run and going fast is our goal. Okay, so I'm headed out towards that canyon that you can see coming up in the distance. Because underneath there is where the little pond and Celosia's arena are. All right, let's see. And there's also a path, like a little step ladder kind of path that we can take to the side, but we don't I'm not going to use that. Instead, what I'm going to do is just get on the cliffside over here and drop directly into the arena. So that just saves another like 30 seconds to a minute, which is nice. And once I activate this cutscene, I'll just talk you through what I'm doing in the fight. So, like I said before, we've got these pillars of fire. I'm going to completely avoid Celosia and climb directly onto this. Celosia is going to square up to hit me. But what I'm going to do is jump off directly to where I know the torch is going to drop. And now that it's here, I can grab that with my empty hand. And since it's unlit the moment you grab it, I'm just going to need to light it on the second, let's see, the second flame. And now that that's done, so here's the glitch I was talking about that's really interesting. So if you look back at Celosia, what I'm doing is essentially tricking her AI. So that back and forth that happened was when I have the weapon out, she thinks, oh, I can attack you. You can't hurt me. And when I have the torch up, she goes, oh gosh, you're scary. You have fire. So by going back and forth between the two weapons on the cliffside like that, you essentially pull her all the way to the edge and then trick her into not attacking you and instead activating into that I have fallen off the cliff because I am afraid of fire cutscene. It's really, really fascinating, and I hope that description made sense. But it's such a cool little trick. I am a huge fan. And we took that out immediately, so we're all set. That's Celosia. Let me see. Okay, amazing. So we are headed back to the central tower, the central shrine, and I'm gonna be headed towards one of the hardest fights in the game. And the reason I call it one of the hardest fights is because the one cycle timing on this Colossus is so hyper specific. And on top of that, unlike a lot of the other Colossi where you can pretty solidly predict what their animation pattern is going to be, sometimes Pelagia, you can look at her and go, okay, I have jumped in the exact point of your face where I know you're going to bob up and jump on the platforms, and Pelagia will just say, that's cute, not today. So it's a mix of needing to know the exact percentages of how much to stab the sigil on the stomach in order to get the one cycle, and also hoping to God that the RNG does not screw you over. There's not much RNG in this game, but I will say I do feel like there is at least a little bit with Pelagia. So, and actually one of the things that's cool about this is even though I always feel dread headed up to this fight, you get to see so many waterfalls, and it is just such a beautiful landscape to take in. And this is a fight where I know that with the others, I would normally explain how to beat the fight on the way to the Colossus, but like, I think it actually, for this one, is going to be easier if I explain it just before we get there, rather than this far in front. Okay. Also, one thing that's, for anyone who's played this game before, you will know this pain. So I've been kind of flying to every Colossus just because I know how to navigate the Forbidden Lands now, but if you have played this game before, one of the ways that you find out how to get to the different Colossi is Wander has a sword that if you are in the light and you shine it, it points in a straight line directly towards that Colossus. The catch with that is sometimes those paths, even though you know the straight line, are way more curved or narrow or nonsense than you would have expected. So this Colossus is one of the ones that figuring out how to get to that get through the forest and where to go next was such a pain. Just because in the forest you don't have light to work with, so you go in and then think you're supposed to go straight and don't realize you can literally just turn right. Same with Hydrus. Hydrus was one that I would constantly go through all of these insane canyons, and it would take me hours to get there. And when I found out that you could just go directly north and then as far left as possible on the map, and that's how you get to Hydrus, I was so upset. All right, let's see. So there's one of those shrine save points to my left, but we're not going to use that because, again, it's a speed run. And this was another place where I would die really regularly when I was casually playing it, because if you accidentally miss that jump, you just plummet directly down the waterfall to the sea below. It's not ideal. Okay, so now that we are closer, Pelagia. The way that you beat this Colossus, well, just to allude to it for a second, the nicknames that I either have for this Colossus or that I've heard for this Colossus are the Dentist, Toothy Boy, Braces, etc. And the reason for that is if you look on the head of this Colossus once we actually get to the fight, there are teeth on the head. And if you hit those teeth, you can actually control the direction the Colossus goes in. Now, if you see those platforms, so this 2-story little circular platforms in the distance, basically what's going to happen is I'm going to need to guide Pelagia to those platforms or to one of them. That way I can agitate her enough that she lifts up and I can then access the sigil that's on her stomach. So what's going to happen speedrun strat wise is I'm actually going to try, and rather than waiting to get all the way to her back, I'm going to go ahead and shoot her head 2 times. And if I can get this jump, yep, there we go. So now that I got that jump, I'm just directly on the face, can get to the head. Bam. Oh, that was a cool looking jump. It was not a graceful version of it, but I'm okay. So now all that needs to happen is I stab the head teeth a few times. That gets me to the pillar, exactly where I need to be. And once she charges up this shot, if I grab onto the face, it's actually going to automatically trigger that animation that I need, which is her jumping up here. And now I can get directly onto the stomach. Now, the trick here is the placement of where you need to be on the sigil and the amount of stabs is very important. So I do 1 full stab, a 95% stab. No! No! I got a meme stab! Oh, I'm so sad. Well, okay, I guess I'm doing 2 cycle here. Oh, that's upsetting. Oh, that's so upsetting. Well, okay. So what would normally happen there? If not for the fact that I got knocked out of my placement and got a meme stab. Oh, that's so upsetting. So basically what should have happened there is you can do a full stab, a 90 to 95% stab, and then 2 more full stabs, and that will 1 cycle the Colossus. However, since unfortunately I got knocked out of placement and got a meme stab, once you miss a single stab on this, because that timing is so specific, you have to do it 2 cycles. So I'm going to go ahead, now that I know that the health is less than halfway, or it's more than halfway done already, I just need to get her to another one of these platforms in order to get back on to that stomach sigil and take out the rest of the damage. So let's see. Okay. Also, I just need people to know that I've only glanced over at the comments twice. A lot of the marathons I'm a part of, they just say, like, you shouldn't engage with the chat too much. But all I saw when I glanced over for a single second just now was, I love that Ruby is explaining this Colossus and the chat is getting rickrolled. And y'all, this is not the meme we needed to bring into this fight. The reason for that meme is, so I sing. I am a singer on days where my voice does not sound like death like today. One of the things I have on my channel is that if people have reached a certain amount of points, then they can redeem a song request for like me casually singing a song while I play a game. And my lovely friend Temporal Mechanic decided to redeem a song request one day and said that I needed to sing that song. So during this fight, I sang that song and then immediately nailed it. And now I guess Rick rolling will forever be associated with this fight, which I I don't know how I feel about that, honestly. Like, audience, if I'm being real with you, I don't know how I feel about that. There's so for when I did the GDQ run, my one of my best friends and I actually made a playlist of all the songs that we associate with the different fights in this game. And the song for this fight, I still have this playlist and love it. Is Blue World. What? Oh gosh, it's Mac something. I'm trying to remember. Give me one sec. I'm actually gonna look it up. Blue World by Mac Miller. That's it. So yes, it's an incredible song that goes really well with the beats in that fight. So listen to that, and then if you want to really get to know the Crystal Crew experience with me and my audience, then listen to it with a Rickroll and just have fun. Okay, so next we're going to be headed towards that Pacifist Colossus I had mentioned earlier, Phalanx. So this fight is honestly one of the overall community favorites in the Team Eco Marathon Speedrun Awards. One of the categories we had was actually Best Colossus. We had a few that were kind of like high school senior superlative honorary mentions, it felt like. And it was pretty consistent among people that out of the Colossi that just all of us love, Phalanx is one of those. So it is the biggest Colossus by far of any of them. It is, I think, twice as long as the last Colossus is tall. And it's very thin, but it has these huge air sacs on its stomach, or these balloons, that what's going to happen with the strategy for this fight is I'm going to need to shoot those out in order to get onto the back of the Colossus. This is another fight where the speedrun strat doesn't vary too much from the regular strat. The only difference is knowing the timing of how to get the air sac shot out sooner. And then you do 1.9 stabs to each of the sigils rather than 2 full ones. So that's pretty much the only differences there. So unless something goes really catastrophically wrong and you fall off the Colossus, this is a pretty easy fight, and it's a really fun one. So let's see. Now that we're getting through the 17th Colossus, known as the Forest, we're headed towards Colossus number 13. The song associated with this one is "Feels Like Summer" by Childish Gambino. Just if people were curious about the playlist, and I typically call this one my Flying Sand Boy or my Flying Sand Snake. All right, let's see. There's a new strategy that someone introduced in the community where you can like run in sideways, and apparently running in at a specific angle like saves you a lot of time. I personally though don't really know how to do the exact strategy that he's talking about, so like I'm just gonna do what I know. So I'm just gonna shoot out these 3 air sacs. So just directly at the start of the fight, got the first. There's the second, and with any luck, yep, there's the third. So now I'm just going to run towards the Colossus as she dips. And now that the wings have gone down and she's going to be in the sand soon, the next step of the fight is just running up alongside her so that I can grab onto those wings and get onto the back. Then after that, it's going to be a matter of getting to each of the sigils, doing 1.9 stabs, and we are good to go. So let's see if I can get this jump really quickly. Oh gosh. Sometimes if you get a little too close to the sand, you can indeed get knocked off. I was very concerned that was what was going to happen there, but thank goodness, I think we're all set. All right, let's see. Okay, perfect. So I'm now on the back. Here's the first sigil. So, and part of the reason I want to do those 1.9 stabs is not only because once you do the first stab on this Colossus, it kind of starts an internal timer where you only have so much time to get each of the sigils before these flaps that are over each of them close, and it kind of forces you off. So not only do you have to worry about that internal timer for the Colossus fight, but you also have to worry about the fact that if you do 2 full stabs to one of these, it causes Phalanx to barrel roll. And that has the potential to knock you off. It eats up stamina, it eats up time, which then makes getting the final sigil harder. So just overall, if you want to speedrun this Colossus, do the 1.9 stabs or you're going to be having a really hard time. But since I was able to get all of those successfully, I'm just going to do the final 2 stabs to this end sigil. And just like that, Phalanx is down. That was a really smooth one. I'm really happy with how that went. That was awesome. And now we are headed towards my favorite Colossus in the game. So we are headed towards Zenobia, or my good guard dog boy. I absolutely love this Colossus. It's another one of the small boys, so kind of like I talked about earlier with Celosia. This is, yep, and I see people already spamming the Zenobia icon in the chat, which is amazing. So Zenobia is that Colossus that you see in the illustration, just minus the star eyes in the actual game. And that icon, side note, was made by the wonderful, talented, and beloved Azuma72. He made a bunch of really incredible icons based on the Colossi. And other bits of art from the Team Eco series for our Discord and streaming community, and was gracious enough to let me use Baby on my channel since it's my favorite Colossus, and I wanted to give a nod of the head to the community. So Zenobia is a little good guard dog boy. And the reason I say that is he is defending a city, essentially, or a little monastery, and is very, very aggressive. It's going to take us a bit to get to the Colossus, so I'm not going to break down the fight until we get closer, just because I really don't see a point in that. And this is one of the longer runs across the landscape. So one thing that's actually really nice about that, though, is, you know, we get to see, now that we are later in the game, for anyone who's never played this before, something really cool is as you beat the Colossi, you can see the beacons of light shining from above where their bodies stand. The other thing is, in order to get to Zenobia as quickly as possible, we have to pass through Bassaran's arena, so where I killed number 9 before. And the corpse will still be there. So part of this game, like a very big part of it plot-wise, is the fact that it makes you realize slowly as the game progresses that what you're doing is not right. Like, Wander is not the hero of this story. He may be the hero of his story, and we are playing through it, but he's not an actual hero by any stretch of the imagination. He's killing innocent creatures, essentially. So one of the ways that they really get you to, or force you to take a look at this, is by having the corpses still dotting the landscape. So we're going to be able to see the Colossus that I killed earlier. And it's going to, once again, try and get me to reevaluate my life choices and decisions that led me up to this point. So, yeah. Let's see how guilty I feel this time. But I have to kill you over and over. I'm a speedrunner. I don't know what to tell you. Sorry, Ueda. Yep, there it is. Covered in dust, already growing trees. Being reclaimed by the landscape. And if you go back to, by the way, if you go back to any of the arenas after you do the fights throughout the game, you will see a corpse like that. So passing over the bridge past Quadratus, you can now see his corpse. I'll show that when we head towards Argus, because the 15th Colossus is going to go actually right in that direction. But if you go back to any of the arenas, you'll be able to see the corpses like that. And Avion's is just like directly face planted into the water, just floating on the top of the surface, which, don't ask me to explain how a stone bird is able to float at the top of a pond. I don't know. I think it's really just because narrative and because friendship and magic. Because friendship and magic, I basically mean our explanation is it's a game, now enjoy the story. All right, let's see. Yeah, this was another one. As much as I love this Colossus coming up, I used to have the hardest time actually navigating there. So joining the speedrun community, mainly just so I could learn all the routes, has just done wonders. It really has. And once we get closer, you're actually going to see little beacons like making a path leading up to the city. I just think it's so cool. It's so fascinating. And I wonder how much of the architecture like used to exist in where I'm running now and just has been deteriorated over time. So yeah, we've got these pillars just leading us into the monastery. So, okay. Now that we are getting closer, I'm going to start breaking down this fight. Because it's one that's going to go a lot faster than it's intended to go. So Zenobia, by defending this city, there are a bunch of pillars. Think like the ones that we just passed, but much, much, much taller, and you can climb on them. So there are going to be a bunch of those dotting the landscape of this city, and you'll see as I pass like one or two of them, and you have to not basically get Zenobia to ram into them and knock over every single one in order to make a path for you to run on. And then eventually there is a platform where we're going to be able to get Zenobia to knock that over, and it knocks off her back armor. Just like with Celosia, the 11th Colossus, the other small boy, who after he fell off the cliff, his armor broke on his back. So normally we have to make all those bridges, but the way that I'm actually going to speed run this is there are two different types of jumps. One is called the super jump and one is called the kaze. I'm basically going to try and land one of the two, and we'll see how it goes. But both of them allow me to circumvent having to get any other pillars to drop. I can just take out that final pillar and get Zenobia to where I want her to be. So I'm going to go ahead and get this started, and I'll try and explain the different pieces as they're happening. But look, there he is. There he is. Look at this good boy. Okay, I'm going to skip now. Okay, perfect. So, okay, I've got the bow out, and I'm basically whistling just to make sure that she starts following me immediately. I'm going to go ahead and jump directly over this, which basically circumvents 4 or 5 different pillars that I would have had to knock over. Now I'm just going to run in these gutters to give me a little bit more time before Zenobia catches up to me. And here is this final pillar. I'm going to see if I can get the super jump, which basically is executed by spamming the triangle button in a specific point of the pillar as quickly as you can. And there we go. Perfect. Okay, so there's the super jump. So it just launches you directly upwards. And now that Zenobia's already hit the pillar once, I just shoot her in the face to agitate her. She's going to turn around. I'm going to shoot her one more time just for RNG's sake to make sure that she's like facing me when I need her to. And if I got this placement, there's also a little cliffside. Yep, perfect. So by hitting this cliffside, I'm able to get directly over here rather than having to go to the left and use the ladder. So that also saves a little bit of time. And now once Zenobia turns around like that, I can jump over here. She's going to knock down that platform. And boom, just like that, the armor on her back is done. Oh my gosh, that was so fun. The other strat that you could do if you don't get the super jump is... there's something that happens with Wander when you're close to something you can grab, but you're not quite there. He'll kind of magnetize onto it. So it's a very, very, very strange thing, but you'll see Wander kind of move and clip to grab that edge. So basically with one of the platforms, you're able to get a really weird side jump and use the magnetism to grab onto one of those ledges. We call it the Kaze jump, just because... Kaze from our community, Bobby Kaze, was the one who founded the trick. But we got the super jump and the wacky jump and got straight onto the Colossus's back. So just like that, Zenobia's down. And we are at 120. So making some pretty good time. I'm a little sad that I lost some time on Bassaran, but this should still be right around or under the estimate. So that's awesome. And we've only got 2 Colossi to go. So the next Colossus is the one that has the other physics abuse that I was mentioning earlier. So that would be Argus. Now, Argus, I refer to as the champion because he is in what looks like a huge gladiator-style arena. It's supposedly a city, based on the hints that Dorman gives you, because, or they'll give you, excuse me. Dorman speaks with a male and female voice simultaneously, so I typically use they pronouns for them. So, but they'll basically give you hints about each Colossus and a little bit of lore about them, so the kind of environment they're in. And then if you were doing a more casual version of this and had Dorman hints on, if you were getting stuck in the fight, Dorman would basically help ever so slightly with guiding you on the right path. When I first started speedrunning and I left on Dorman hints, I actually thought it was really funny because I would always try and beat the Colossus before Dorman could try and tell me what to do. And a lot of times I would be getting in the final stab, and as the Colossus was falling, the Dorman would say, "You know, Gaius's armor seems fragile. Maybe you can break it," as the Colossus is collapsing into the dirt. So I just always found that really funny. Yeah, Dorman backseating, exactly. It's always really, really funny when that happens. But now that I've gotten, more and more into doing speed runs, honestly, you have to turn the Dorman hints off, mainly because for some reason there's one particular cutscene that just stops your motion altogether, and it only happens if you have Dorman hints on. If you have them off, you can avoid the cutscene and then having to spend the extra time re-bucking the horse to go. So it only is a 2-second time save, maybe, but every second really does count. So if you are seriously considering speedrunning this game, once you get to the point where you want to start submitting runs, I would recommend turning it off. And if you are curious, now that we're getting towards the end of the run, if you want to join the Team Eco Speedruns community, if you are interested in speedrunning this game or any of the other games in the series, or if you just like watching them and want to hear more about it, I would definitely recommend joining the Discord, because we have events with the community all the time. We constantly cross-advertise each other's stuff. It's just a really good group of people who do runs for charity, runs for fun, runs professionally, and on top of that, there are a bunch of really good beginner help sections that have videos to tutorials and guidebooks and things like that. So I really, really cannot recommend it enough. Definitely do it if you get the chance. All right, let's see. Okay, so with this particular fight, the way that I'm going to try and beat Argus is, and I know I mentioned the physics abuse already, but the way you would normally beat this fight is by getting Argus to basically hit different parts of the arena and break them. You get him to make a bridge for Wander to actually run across. So at first it's, okay, I'm not tall enough to get to this staircase. So you get Argus to stomp on some side platforms and it makes a ramp for you. Then, oh, there are these bridges, but I can't jump onto your head. So you get Argus to break the bridge, and then that gives you a really good, basically diving board that you can jump onto him. And the other thing about this fight is there's one sigil on the head, and that's the one that you need to get all the way up for. And then the other sigil is actually on his hand. And the way you would normally take that out is there is a little bit of a weak spot on one of the arms. And once you stab that, it gets him to drop a sword that he's holding, or a hammer. And by getting him to drop that, you then have a lot more access to the fur on his hand and can get that sigil. What I'm going to do is nothing like that, because again, this is a speed run. So what I'm going to do instead is jump directly onto the hand and use that magnetism abuse, actually, that I mentioned could be done in the last fight if I had needed it. And I'm going to use that as part of the main strat here. So I'm going to go ahead to the right just because I want to basically get Argus stomping that foot so I can get the proper animation. Jump on this knee. And now by basically jumping past the hand, I can then get directly into the fur and get that stab in. You only need one stab, which is really nice here. And now I just want to make sure I have the right placement, because I'm going to do one of those physics abuse jumps as these walking animations happen. So just like that, I'm launched onto the shoulder. This usually places you either on the shoulder or the head. And since I don't need that weak spot sigil on the arm, I'm just going to go directly towards the head sigil and stab this all the way home. Let me see if I can get a plant here. It's a little harder to hit on this one. Let's see. There we go. And just like that, first try Argus. Yay! Didn't need any tactical suicides or anything. That was awesome. Oh, I am so delighted right now. So yes, that's Colossus number 15, and now we are just headed towards our final boy, Malice. Malice is definitely the tallest Colossus in the game, and looks like a tower, essentially. Just a robed tower. I call him my tallest boy for a reason that to some people may seem dumb. I personally am always delighted by it. So I grew up watching Invader Zim as like one of the cartoons that was my go-to. And in Invader Zim, on Zim's particular alien planet, the people who are worshipped as their leaders are just the aliens out of them who are the tallest. And two of them are the exact same height, so they are referred to as the tallest, and they are the ones who are worshipped and revered and who lead their society. So, for some reason, Malice has always reminded me of the tallest from Invader Zim, so he is my tallest boy. So one thing that's really cool about this is since it's the final run, it's one of the longer ones in the game, and you get to see just some of the beautiful rolling plains. And if you've ever had the chance to play Journey, which is another beautiful game, not by the same studio, but it's another beautiful game, and much like this series, has a lot of implicit storytelling, and just gorgeous graphics, gorgeous music. So definitely play if you get the chance. But there's, at the end of the game, these two mountains that have just a divide in the center. And it's just this absolutely beautiful final visual of walking into this mountain at the end of the game. And it's kind of the beacon of light that you see and are headed towards the entire game. So the cliff where we're actually going to find Malice goes through mountains that look almost the exact same. And there's something about that even though, yes, they're different series, they're different studios, in my headcanons, I like to say that I think Journey, like, the things that happen in Journey may have been what felled the civilization here. Or maybe it's something that happened like way, way, way later, and it's another like cursed generation in the Forbidden Land. Again, it's not canon, and it's not my official headcanon, but sometimes it's fun to just think about what that separate universe where they are connected would look like. Oh my god. I hear my cat meowing for attention outside of the room as I do this final Colossus. And it is so cute, and I'm so sad that I'm sorry, Leo. I cannot give you pets. I'm kind of headed towards the final boss here. And he continues meowing. Who cares about your final Colossus? I demand attention. All right, let's see. Okay, so this is that final gate I was mentioning, just headed right here into this mountain with the two sides just converging into a path. And where you actually have to shine light in order to get inside, just like how in Journey, you know, it's just this filled with nothing but light. Cat neglection. I know, I'm the worst. I'm the worst. But I think he went to get affection from one of my lovely roommates, so I think we'll be okay. Okay, so we're also at the point of the game where since it's towards the end, we're going to start hitting a lot of unskippable cutscenes. So this is one of them, unlike the rest of the game where I was able to just fly right through. There are going to be, I think, 3 or 4 total that are, there's just nothing I can do about it. I have to let them play. All right, let's see. So there's number 1, and then we're about to hit number 2. And I'm gonna give a quick content warning. If animals dying in movies or video games is not your bag, I'm just gonna let you know. It's going to appear as though my horse Agro has died. However, I can promise you, in the final credits of this game, I'm not going to say how, but you find out that Agro does indeed survive. So, if you were worried about this death, know that it's not actually a death. But we salute you, babe. You're wonderful. And I appreciate everything you've done for me this run. Yes, press F to pay respects for this horse. I really thought Ruby was lying to us every time they said this, and then I beat the game and found out it was true. Yep, exactly. Pablo. Oh my gosh. Tic Tac, that is actually what my roommate thought the horse's name was for years. So sometimes if I just want to give him crap, I'll go, Pablo! Instead of Agro! Oh my gosh, good time. All right, let's see. Okay, perfect. And we've only got one or two more unskippable cutscenes left. But now I'm just going to make the climb towards this boy. Okay, so Malice. Let me break down this fight so when we get there it actually makes sense. So this Colossus is huge and has bunkers all leading up to him, as well as like basically blast barriers, because Malice has heat-seeking missiles. Not great. So Malice will, as you run up to him, try and hit you with these heat-seeking missiles. So the way that you would normally beat this fight is by using essentially the bunkers that dot the landscape to dodge those hits, as well as the blast barriers. And that will allow you to climb and get closer and closer and use the tunnels to get to the Colossus itself and land underneath. What I'm going to do is it's going to look kind of insane if you've never seen this. So basically what's going to happen is there is a very specific path that you can run along where you can actually avoid and completely skip a bunch of those barriers and avoid the bullet shots of Malice. So I'm going to go ahead and, oh gosh, I'll get my bow out in a sec. All right, final Colossus, wish me luck. Okay, here we go. So, as Malice is trying to hit me with that first bullet, I'm going to basically dodge past that pillar, and it's going to hit there instead. I'm then going to jump here, and when I jump and whistle and then roll right here, it allows me to get a lot closer. Now, unfortunately, you can do that hitless. I did get hit, but this is also a super easy recovery. So all I need to do is roll back up here, and this next time I will be good to go, and I'm going to proceed on a path where Malice's hits aren't actually going to hit me. So now instead they're going to be hitting up here, because normally I would be running down past those blast barriers, and that is where Malice is generally trying to aim. Malice doesn't think that I should be up here, and now I can just get in the final tunnel and circumvent all of the others to get to the final Colossus. Here we go. All right. Let's see how this goes. This is a Colossus that the first time I ever actually timed this fight, my roommate and I kept switching the controller back and forth, and it took us like an hour because this climb can take so long, but once you actually learn how the controls work and get more used to them and know the path, it gets so much easier. And the way that you normally do this final part of the fight is you essentially, there is a weak spot on the back. And by stabbing the back, you get onto one of the hands. By then stabbing the hand and getting it to level out, you can stab a shoulder and then get onto the other hand. And then the other hand lets you stab the other shoulder. It's a nonsense path, and there are so many places where you could fall off or get thrown. What I'm going to do instead is basically skip a bunch of those steps, go directly to the step of hit shoulder. Malice's arm is actually going to drop down right here where I need it. And I'm going to jump onto this bracelet. And as he lifts it up to examine me, I can actually use that momentum to jump directly onto the shoulder. So just like that, I have skipped about 5 or 10 steps and I am on the head. And I'm gonna hope that I get a plant here. I'm a little far forward for my taste, but I think we'll be okay. And now at this point, this is the only sigil on this Colossus, so I just need to keep stabbing it and hope that I stay in my plant so I can just take it all the way home. And there we go. That's the final Colossus. So now we've just got the last little section left. So it's just going to be a matter of basically what's going to happen in the end, which is going to get very confusing with the cutscenes that we're going to be skipping. So Wander has killed the Colossi, and when he shows up again at the temple, is just completely corrupted, has horns, bleeds the same way the Colossi do. These people from his village come and basically go, "Oh my God, you are doing the you're doing the cursed thing that you definitely shouldn't have done. You are performing this ritual and bringing back a god that we sealed for a reason." And then you become part of the doorman. The doorman borrows your body, you become this, and they start shooting at you like crazy. The way that you speedrun this section is normally you would want to fight them and just try and do what you can to escape the situation, even though it is inevitable. No matter what, you can't get out. But what we do is the speedrun strat is we do the tradition of blowing fire, as we call it, Vape Nation. There we go. And then otherwise just stay out of their way. The fastest way to do this is by avoiding hitting them. They just start running away as quickly as possible rather than engaging with you constantly. So I'm just going to keep hanging out here, let them escape, and then eventually it will activate the cutscene. And the timer is going to stop at the moment that Wander hits the water. So I will go ahead and let you know when that's coming up and call time. But we are there. We are really, really close to there. And again, I just want to say, Fleet Fest, thank you so much for having me. This has been a delight to run, and again, it's a really good cause that you're raising money for. So to our audience, thank you so much for sticking with me for this run. If you are interested in following me in the future, you're welcome to come over to the rubiehart channel, which is my Twitch, or you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram as rubiehart gaming. I not only play Shadow of the Colossus, but I do Let's Plays of other games, play games in my backlog. I add voiceover to games with other actor friends of mine. It's a good time. And time. There we go. That's the end of the game. Oh, that was so fun. 139.51. So that's not my personal best, but it's only a few minutes behind. If I am under an hour 40 in real time, I'm extremely happy. So that was a great run. I only really had 1 or 2 little trips, and everything else was really, really solid. So again, thank you so much for the audience for joining, and stick around for more of the amazing speedruns that are coming up later today. Hey, Emerald, thank you so much for having me.